Yes. Check 1 2 1 2. Is this thing on?
How you doing, Doc?
Oh, you sound good. You sound good. All right, just checking. All right, gang. As you can tell, I'm on the road. I'm not in my normal studio, so had to make adjustments, arrangements, concessions, all of the above when you be somewhere different. But there's always a freaking critic. That's how it works. Anyway, so today, as you can tell, Katie is not as cute as normal. We got Luis subbing in for Katie today. Oh, you know what? Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give myself just a little extra boom, 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 boom. Ah, there we go. There you go. That looks better. Because otherwise, we have different size heads.
All
And
right.
my head is not as large as. You know, it's gonna be weird. It's like number one, not having a teleprompter, so looking down at this screen to kind of see what's going on. See, now the camera did something dumb. Hold on, let me try
Yep.
something here. What the heck? Don't do this. Everything was fine, and then we get started, and then now it wants to be dumb. All right, here we go. It's back.
Okay, you're
All right.
back though.
All right, that was cool. That was weird. And that was a manual touch of the lens. There was nothing touched in software. So it's going to be one of those days. All right, anyway, gang, so this is the flow.
All right.
We will do a live recording here today. And then what happens is at the end of the live recording, we go to the Q&A. I'm going to do myself a favor before this causes an issue. I am going to copy, and then paste on a different one, and then switch to the other camera here, just in case, because it seems like once you go live, it doesn't like this USB thing. So I'm gonna do this, boom. So, okay, here's what I'm doing today. I got my Insta360 right here as a backup, and then I have my A7 IV right here. And then that way, if something should happen, look, I have an Insta360 ready to pop on, and the crop is similar, a little different, but as close as you're gonna get, considering this camera is, a smaller little camera. I'm not recording in the Rodecaster Pro today. I'm using the Rode Video Mic NTG because it's portable, part of my Rode kit. Still streaming in the Mac Mini, and got my little cow digit over here, and the key ingredient to streaming on the road is this bad boy right here, your white balance checker, so that you can white balance. No lights at all today, none whatsoever. This is called good ass Virginia sunlight. So we're gonna have to do this quickly before the light starts changing. So I just want to run through real quick. Don't forget, guys, we are gonna do Q&A at the end. But if you have any questions, today of all days, not being on my normal setup, not being able to see properly, your questions gotta have a queue. If it don't have a queue, I ain't gonna see it because I'm working in a tiny little window right here. So all you guys think you're cute with the questions with no queues, it probably not gonna get answered. I'm gonna just stay on the Insta360. This seems to be a problematic situation. It won't look as pretty, but what the heck?
Hey, it is what it is. It's
Right.
a show on the road, just like last week.
Well, it's also an
And
audio podcast, so it
mhm.
kind of somewhat doesn't matter. One
And
thing
because
about
of that, a
go ahead.
tip that I'm also recording on Ecamm on my end, so that we also have the split audio.
All right, now let me fix this because I gotta be like super picky about it being straight.
Doc, you're touching a camera, and every time you adjust it, it's freezing on you.
What the heck, man?
Now the 360 one is frozen.
All right, it's back. Man, it's something weird, man. It seems like beta 11 is not a fan. Anyway, let's stop messing with stuff. Oh, now this one don't want to behave. What the heck? Oh, this is gonna get dumb real quick. Is this one normal? All right, let's see. Let's see. This one seems to be normal now. All right, yeah, man. It might be too many things popping on the USB because you know how the cow digit does not seem to like the
Yeah.
Mac Mini sometimes. That might be the
Yeah,
case.
that
All right.
actually makes sense.
All right. So
So what are you gonna try? Are you gonna try to remove the 360 to just leave the A7 IV?
yeah, because I could always plug it if it becomes a problem, right? Let's do that.
That's true.
Uh, let's do this. We're going to take the 360 out. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, out of there. And then I'm also going to take out the Rode Wireless Go and just hope everything's good. If we have a problem, I could always plug it in real quick, and that might help. All right, so what else we got here?
I actually think it did.
I think that helped, right? And
Yeah, I
then
think actually as soon as you took off the 360 camera, I think the Sony started acting better.
all right, there we go.
All right.
Lord of mercy. This is how we go straight when you come to the blood clot. Whee! Some things happen, people. Some things happen. All right, I think that's it. The only other thing popping over here, just making sure we're all good in the hood, you know. Let's try one other thing, and then we can stop messing around. Let's see if that catches it. And boom. Thank you guys for hanging while we get all of these testing situations straightened out. And then I am somebody. All right. I think we're almost done. Again, let's make sure we got our question situation straightened out. And then we're going to get ready to get started to do this before it goes crazy. Let's get one more adapter here. And then I think we're good. All right. So today we're going to be talking about, what are we talking about? We're talking about podcast editing. And it's funny because I think I saw Roy ask the question, but he didn't form it as a question. I'm not going to go back and search it. I'm going to just hope that he reposits that question as a proper question so I don't have to hunt for it when I get done. So Roy, if you want to copy and paste your question and put it in the proper formality, it would make my job a lot easier, which I'll appreciate because I'm not in my normal situation. You know what I'm saying? Here's another sample, just an example. All right, cool. So we got this all straightened out, and I think we're good. I think all of the monitors and things have stopped tripping, and we should be good to go. All right, let me just check the recordings. I know what I was going to do. One other thing before we start, let me go ahead and empty said trash. Every once in a while, it will get crazy and be like, oh, you don't have no space. How you been, Luis?
I've been good. Got a lot of edits done in this past week, so really happy about that, including my own. I've been
Nice.
working on a video, and well, you'll see it as soon as I'm finished with it. Hopefully, I'll have it done after this podcast.
Um, Train your brain, Busan. Not technically podcast related question, but ISO recording already exists. It existed for nearly 2 versions. So yeah, I think we started ISO recording in version 3, but now we're on version 3.11. So we already have ISO recording. If you're speaking of ISO video, specificity is super important. We will release ISO video when 4.0 is released. And since we are already in 4.0 beta, I mean, you kind of already know it's coming. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like starting to get cold. I see people putting chains on their tires. It's probably going to snow. It's one of those. Yeah, there you go. Well, not that there's snow in Busan, but you know what I'm saying. Anyway, all right. Okay, I'm going to keep Roy's question just in case. Because it is a good question, Roy, believe it or not. It is absolutely a good question, so I'm going to keep it there so I can bring it up later. But boom, there we go. Thank you, Mr. Paul. Mr. Duncan says we're going to put the non-podcast related questions in either the cord or the book, one of the two. Just because, yeah, today is podcast. All right. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to start the recording, and then once we start this recording, there will be no questions answered for a little bit. But as soon as the recording is dead, we will come back and get to those questions. And I'm going to do my damnedest over here to attempt to sit up straight this whole time, because if I slump, it's super obvious in this particular setup. It's super obvious. Let me move back here. And I think this is about right. So I got to kind of stay right here. All right, here we go. We're going to count it down. Everybody take a drink of water. Those of you guys recording podcasts at home. My brother-in-law bar is right there. I'm wondering if I should do shots before we record this. Anyway, here
Let's
we go.
hold off.
Counting them down in 5, 4, 3. Aloha, everybody, and welcome to The Flow. I am your host, Doc Rock, community manager at Ecamm, and Katie is on vacation. Katie is on vacation. So today, riding with me, my ride or die homie, Mr. Camera Junkie, also known as Luis Vega. Aloha, Luis.
How you doing, Doc?
Hey, good. You know how it is. You know what it is. Today, we're going to be talking about podcast editing. And the reason why I picked this is because Luis is the editor of The Flow. I tend to edit my personal podcast. I tend to edit them myself just because I find it easier due to the fact that A, I've been editing audio for years. B, I know what I said. So it's quicker to me, but we are lucky to have Luis as the podcast editor for Ecamm because that leaves my plate open to answer all of your guys' crazy questions when you have crazy questions. So it's kind of a win-win-win, no matter what type situation. Anyway, so let's dive in. We're going to do some basic questions and things, and then from there, we'll get into the deeper questions as related to the flow. So before we start, I do want to remind you, if you haven't done so already, we're going to want you to go over, if you like this bad boy, we're going to want you to go over and jump on to like your iTunes or something like that and leave a review if you're liking the show. Reviews really help the podcasters a lot. The best thing you can do if you like a show is leave a review on iTunes. It does make life so much better for the podcasters. It also lets the other people know that the show is worth listening. It's kind of like restaurants, right? You go to restaurants that other people that you like or you trust or you understand have said this restaurant is good. So that's why reviews kind of help out a lot. So if you like the show, please go to iTunes and drop a review. Also, if you like the show and it's helpful, or you know somebody who's doing a podcast, especially who has been contemplating a video podcast, please send them a link and ask them to come to the show. The live tapings happen like this every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. So weird for me, it's actually 12 p.m. Eastern. I'm used to being 6 a.m. in the boom o'clock morning in Hawaii.
Very true.
But I'm on the East Coast right now, and it's kind of throwing me off. But my voice definitely sounds better because I'm awake. And then number 2 is if you want to come to the live taping, realize that we're going to record it then. You'll be live. You'll get to ask questions, get your questions answered live in the mix, which I think is fanglorious. And then also you will have to come back the next week to get the recorded content. So that is how it goes with the flow. And the funnest part about recording live is getting live changes in the sunlight, because then I can just rock the camera manually. Anyway, so let's get started with the flow. We're going to start off today again talking about podcast editing. So we're going to take this baby to the very first question. So if you will, Mr. Katie Junkie, Mr. Camera Junkie, let's go. Why did I make Luis laugh right before he has to read something?
Do you need a podcast editor?
That is a fantastic question. All right, in the brain of Doc, I'm going to say not really, because actually editing can be simple. And it is one of those things that even if you are going to hire an editor, I think you should edit some yourself anyway. So let's say you edit slow because you don't have the experience yet. And you hired an editor like Mr. Camera Junkie or someone of that nature. You should still edit it anyway. Let them go ahead and do a thing so you can get it out and publish them. but it's crazy for you not to at least learn the basic editing techniques. Here's why. You will be better capable of explaining to your editor how you want things when you know how to edit. And they will understand you better, right? If I spoke completely to Luis in Japanese instead of our native tongue, which is Spanish with the Puerto Rican flavor, um, yeah, he would be like,
Spanglish.
what? Yeah, Spanglish, New Eurekan. But what do they call New Eurekans in Miami? My Maricans? I don't even know if there's a word for that.
They call us Cuban.
Oh my God. They call me Cuban Pete. I'm the king of the. Sorry, I'm gonna get stuck on my chicky boom, chicky boom. So yes, I think it's important that it would definitely help you more. It help you understand the basics if you have the ability to tell your editor exactly what you want. So you should learn it, but you won't have to learn the heavy minutia. And to be honest with you, editing audio is actually pretty simple. What makes it more difficult is the processing of the audio after. You're literally cutting out words you don't like and closing gaps. There's tons of great editing software, but the processing part to make it sound, that's a little bit more polished. How say you, Mr. Junkie Camera?
Well, I would have to agree with you on both of those points. First of all, it if you were starting, being able to edit your own podcast, I think is something that you should attempt even before hiring an editor, for the simple reason that you will also not only be able to communicate to that editor a lot easier, but you also know and have a realistic view of what the process entails. It might not be the hardest thing, but you also know that it's a time consuming process, so that you will value your editor's time that much more and understand what you're asking out of that person. The other aspect that I would also think is that, yeah, when it comes to editing the audio, it is pretty simple when you're doing it that way. But it also depends on the podcast that you're doing. So, like you mentioned before, that you do your own podcast, it's a lot easier when you're doing it with only one person. But when you're editing a podcast with multiple people, two or more, then that's when things start becoming a little bit more complicated. And you would need specifically that isolated audio, so that the latency that's built into these programs while you're recording, actually you're able to mitigate when someone accidentally like steps over or talks over somebody during a crucial point in your podcast.
There you go. You're right. That's one thing that you will learn if you do edit the podcast yourself. You will learn how to avoid things like audio stepping or accidentally stepping over the other person as they speak. I'm going to do something sacrilege and put ISO and audio right now. I mean, ISO and auto, because, yeah, the sun's changing too much, and I hate auto ISO. Especially after Jared walks in, he's going to be like, man, Doc's on auto ISO. The people listening to this, never mind. Anyway,
Yeah.
I do like that concept that you said about, again, just understanding what your editor is going to want, right? And I think it also helps you become a better podcaster, because when you do edit a little bit yourself, even if it's only just for practice, you understand better how not to fade a line. Okay, what does that mean? Let's say I wanted to do a comment that Paul put in, and it says, please take your question over to Facebook. We're only answering podcast questions today, right? When you fade a line like that, instead of saying, please take your questions over to Facebook, we're only answering podcast questions today. Like you end with the, when you fade a line, and Luis is laughing because I fade the living out of my lines.
Yes.
I think it's because we fade lines when we speak as humans, and when I'm doing the show with Katie, I'm talking to my buddy. So yeah, we tend to do that, but it will help you when you do your recordings. You'll learn how to not fade your lines as much, and therefore you'll get better, clean endings to sentences. You will also learn to let things breathe in between statements instead of just waxing rhapsodically and bump things together. So, what I mean by that is you learn to become more cognizant of to end on the sentence and let it beat for like at least 2 heartbeats before you start the next sentence. That makes your editing easier. It also makes your podcast editor's job a lot easier. Like that.
Absolutely.
There you
Exactly.
go.
And
Yes.
knowing that same thing, that allowing the person who's speaking, and if you're having a conversation as far as a podcast goes, make sure that you're paying attention and that you're not just so fixated on what you're trying to say next, because you could actually interrupt something because you're trying to fit your answer in between those two little heartbeats like you mentioned. And make sure that the person who's asking or speaking ahead of you is actually done and with their concise thought or question before you start answering yourself, because I could have accidentally stepped in between your message there and would have made one of those, faux pas.
Right, right. So the timing and the pacing when you have a partner, that does become natural after time. When you're dealing with the guests and you're changing guests every week, that does take a little bit more work. But remember, the cool part about doing a video podcast and why you should be using Ecamm Live is we can see each other. So I can
Yeah.
do the Tina, the Tom, and that lets Luis know that I want to say something. Or I could do the Kanye, wait. I'm gonna let you finish. I'm gonna let you finish. I'm gonna let you finish. Right? You can give hand gestures or something of that nature. The other thing, while we're recording, if Luis is talking and he's about to throw it to me, and I'm over here doing one of these numbers with this bottle of water here, Luis would know he has to say 3 or 4 more words until I can get the and then ready to go. All right, very cool.
Yeah, and not only that, just the other aspect, that even if you're just doing a audio podcast, but using this to actually be able to see someone nodding their head and giving you that affirmation of what you're speaking on, as far as the same thing that I had just mentioned, that you're actually listening to them and that you're paying attention to what they're saying.
100%. How about okay? So let's catch the breath. Let's get on to point number 2, Mr. Luis.
Should you edit your podcast?
Pick that line up again because I think you
Oh,
clipped the first line.
that's right. How should you edit your podcast?
Ooh, that's a good question. All right, so here's what I'm gonna tell most of you guys who are listening to the show tend to be Mac users because Ecamm Live is a Mac only product, and in that case, just start with GarageBand. If you follow the Doc Rock school of getting the Final Cut suite, you have Logic, but Logic has a bigger learning curve and it might be a little bit freaked out to people. So I'm going to say number 1, start with GarageBand. Number 2, I would probably, if you're an Adobe person, you have Audition, I would go with Audition next. It's just slightly easier than Logic. I love Logic. I can do both Audition and Logic, but Adobe Audition is extremely good. If you happen to be a Photoshop user, you already have it. So it's not super hard to learn. Mr. Mike Russell of musicradiocreative.com has a metric ton of fantastic tutorials on how to use Audition. And actually, so does Adobe. Adobe has this thing called Adobe Live TV, and they give all the tutorials there. Believe it or not, I've even edited podcasts in Final Cut because I have my visual there, right? I'm doing it in my video editor. Now, let's say I don't want to learn audio editing at all, period, point blank, dock you out your dang mind. I hope you get hit in the head with a biscuit while you're in Virginia. I'm going to say my answer to that would be Descript. Descript. That's descript.com. It is so simple. You take your audio file when you're done, you drop it into Descript, and Descript basically turns it into a Word document, a Google Doc, if you will. and you just edit like you're editing a document. It automatically edits your podcast. So if I say something like every hour is happy hour, that's what it says on the sign over there. I can then, you'll see that on my page. It'll say every hour is happy hour, period. And then you'll see my side comment that says that's what it says on the sign over there. I can highlight that's what it says the sign over there and delete it, and it automatically deletes it from the audio, and it chops the video if you threw a video at it too. Descript is the ultimate audio editing hack. Ice cream.
Yep. And that doesn't even include the fact that it has that overdub feature. So if you have this script or you're looking into it, there's an aspect where you could actually pre-record a specific, like phrase or paragraph that will then allow you to actually correct errors in the podcast, like the error that I had just a little while ago that nobody would hear because we were able to actually just pick up that line. But if you actually did not get that chance, then what you can do with the script is actually have an overdub feature that will actually replace a word or maybe even insert a word that you got to say in general with that feature directly through the script. So I would agree that the script, if you're just starting out, is an amazing tool and it has a whole lot of power and a lot of features that you can use for your podcast.
There you go. There you go. I really, really like the script. The script is a game changer. There's a couple of online editing things, but to me, it seems like it's going to slow your process down. You got to upload the thing, then you got to edit it there, then you got to download the thing. To me, it's a lot of work. So just use GarageBand. It's built in. Another fancy thing about GarageBand, you can do it on your iPad. You can do it on your phone. Like, you can get busy with it. Some of your guys' podcast hosts actually have built-in editors as well. So that's another place to look. I believe Audacity was one of the most famous as far as the free editors goes. I have never, ever, ever been a fan of Audacity because, yeah, this is going to sound mean, but Audacity is a fantastic editor, but I'm a very graphic design oriented person. UI, UX is everything. The Audacity UI, aka user interface, or UX, user experience, as if it was coded by a chimpanzee. So it's just not a thing. I do
Come on,
not
Doc.
like I don't like ugly apps, man. I can't do it. I
I would
just
I
can't
would
do
at
it.
least said Windows, like Windows XP,
It
something
is
of that
extremely
aspect.
Windows XP. Oh my god, and XP is Latin for expansi. So chimpanzee. Yo, it does look like it still was written in Windows XP, which I find funny because it's a good app. But like, fam, after all of these years, could you get a designer? And I know it's open source, but I bet you there's tons of kids right now in design school or UX school at many universities that if you put out a thing and said, hey, we're going to do a GoFundMe campaign to raise money to hire someone to polish this app so it no longer looks like Windows XP, you would get all kind of contestants. Some people would want to do it purely on the pride and they need stuff for their portfolio. So I don't know. And that's one of the
Yeah,
disadvantages of open source. There isn't always a company behind it or a boss, if you will. So those decisions are harder to come by, which is also why OBS still looks like it was crafted in a handbag because there is no actual company behind it. And it's a fantastic app. It's a great place to jump off for many, many people because it's free. But that is the nature of open source. You don't always get pretty. So speaking of looking like open source, hey Todd. I'm joking.
so Doc, let me ask you, how would you edit your podcast?
I find right now that the easiest thing for me is drop it in the script first, fix the heavy lifting, like just now when I said the heavy, easy to chop that out, right? And then the script exports to either Final Cut, Premiere, Audition, already just in the thing. So I tend to export it to Audition for the audio stuff, and I export it to Final Cut for the visual stuff. And once I'm in Final Cut, I just close those transitions. I make the transitions prettier, put a little on top, you know. Oh my goodness, I have
Hmm.
something to show you later. Speaking of which, I have to try to reach out to them. There's something called Audio Design Desk, ADD. Yeah, I know, right? Speaking of which,
Okay.
and it can go by and it helps you automatically put in the whenever you do transitions. Like it can feel it.
I just saw Dylan John's video on it.
Oh, he published it. I've been watching the pre-release.
Okay, so yeah, no. Well, you're probably part of his Discord, right? But regardless, I just saw it. It was released today. Yeah, audio desk, something like that, and super super interesting. Amazing how easy and how fast you can create a sound design. But that's a conversation for another day.
Oh my goodness, it's so good. It's so good. Um, let's let's go in and talk about that. There was another one brought up in the chat. This is why you should come to live recordings. Dean said, check out Reaper. Same problem with Reaper. It just it looks like it was
Yeah.
spray painted, not a thing. Like it's a good app. I got one of my homies actually writes Reaper plugins, and I tell him all the time. I was like, man, could we just throw like one of our designer friends at it? I cannot do apps that look like they were designed in the back seat of a moving car. It's just
They just need to get somebody to skin them. You
yeah.
understand?
A
Actually
lot
take
of
all
times
the
you can
same
skin it.
exact coding and just throw a skin on top of them to make them look nicer.
I
That's
will
it.
say, going to the website real quick, Reaper has had a visual upgrade, so I take it back, Reaper. You're okay. Now you just look like one of them people that went away for summer vacation and came back hot. Okay, Reaper's cool. You can let it go now. Go back and try Reaper if you want. It is a heavy hitter though for people who are easily intimidated. I don't know how we're friends. Um, yeah, go. Reaper is also another good one too, and it's I think it's mostly free. Okay, let's
Yes.
get over to our last question. Unless you have something to add.
Well, no, like
All right,
maybe I might add the same thing a little later in the conversation. So let's
okay,
continue.
let's moving on. What are some pro tips and tricks for success? Okay. All right, my number one pro tip for success is freaking do it. That's it. That's it. I'm telling you, man, that's it. All of the stuff that you're scared about right now. Um, and I'm not going to pick on anyone specifically, but I'm seeing the questions as they come in. Some of those questions are questions because they're great questions. Some questions that come in when we're on lives are attempts to parlay the inevitable. And what does that mean? Mama said, take your butt outside and cut the grass. And me, I would get up, go to the garage, get the Lamore, vroom, start cutting the grass. Some of my family members whose house I might be sitting in right now doing the podcast would be like, "Oh, do it have gas in it? Um, oh, when was the last time Sean lubricated it? Oh, are we gonna have to rake the leaves first?" All of those questions, they're questions, and in your brain you feel like you want an answer, but really what you're doing is just trying to parlay the and do the actual thing. So I often tell my people, my students of my game, listen, when you ask the question, ask yourself really, do you need this answer or do you just want this answer as a way to kick the can further down the road? Okay? So I know that's a lot and I know that's hard for people to grok, but trust me, we have all through extra questions and especially before a test. Remember in elementary or high school when the teacher's about to pass out that pop quiz and everybody all of a sudden
Mhm.
got questions? Those questions are just because you ain't studied. So you're trying to like parlay it long enough so that you could be in your book, hoping in that people are asking questions so you can at least backfill your head with a couple of things so you can do better on the test. That's it. I'm sorry. So yes, my answer is just do it. It's okay to start when you start. iPhone in the bathroom, iPhone in the car, all fantastic places to record. A walk in closet surrounded by clothes, another fantastic place to record. And then If you can't edit at all, go straight to your Fiverr or your Ecamm community email. Hey, fam, I'm looking for a podcast editor. Just do something like that to get started. Get those first 5 or 6 episodes under your belt, and then we can start tweaking from there. Mr. Junkie.
Yeah, I would have to agree. First thing is to get started because your first podcast will never be your best podcast. And the whole thing is that you need to get it like done and over with so that you can get to your second, your third, and your fifth, and how many more that you continue to do. And you will be progressing every time that you do it. But it starts with one. And that's what it is. One is so much more valuable or so much more greater than zero could ever be because every experience starts with one. So, like Doc just said, if you've been thinking about it and you're a bit on the fence, I would highly recommend to just get started. I started with live streaming and did a 30-day challenge. And last week I did episode 91 of my weekly live stream. So 91 consecutive weeks started with one. And that's the only thing that I can tell everyone. Just get started. You know, it's not going to be perfect, but the things that you dislike about it, you will learn right away by getting it done. And you will never know what it is that you need to fix until you get started. So, that's one thing that I would have to 100% agree with is just get started, get going.
There you go. There you go. I think another good tip for success would be practice. Okay, let's say you're uncomfortable with speaking on the microphone. And again, comfort is one of those words that I wish I could erase from the English language. Because if you're comfortable, you're stagnant, you're not growing. Remember when you were like 12 or 13 and your legs would hurt or your back would hurt or whatever? We call them growing pains. Why? Because you're becoming bigger human. You know what I'm saying? Some people didn't get past their 12th grade growing up, Diana Gladney, but the rest of us, we grew. And those growing pains are part of the thing. That's when you know you're working. If you're a bodybuilder, if you're at the gym and your muscles don't hurt, you're not growing muscles. It just doesn't. So like I wish we could get rid of that comfortable thing. But let's just say in supposition, you are feeling say less than natural speaker on a microphone or on a camera. Get up every day and do your self journal to the camera or the microphone. Talk to the camera or microphone more often. Get into practice of sending audio/video messages to members of your family, right? So let's say I wanted to get better. I'm actually good at it, so it's going to probably be way simpler. Just grab your phone and I want to give an idea, right? So you pop open your phone real quick and you say, today I want to make that spaghetti. I want to make mom's spaghetti a la Eminem style. So stop by the grocery store and remember to pick up the ingredients, but also remember while you're doing this to go ahead and call your mom because it's something nice and memory causing when you start to make that tomato sauce. It sparks those memories of when we were kids, and I really enjoy that. So yeah, for dinner today, I'm making mom spaghetti. Boom. Just do that. If you do that, you can keep them, you can delete them, you can share them. And that was an Instagram reel. You can share them on IG. But that will get you over this weird thing of constantly telling yourself, I'm bad on camera, I look this way or I sound this way. Nobody likes the sound of their voice, not one human in the world. Why? Resonance in your head is not what comes out of your voice because it's not bouncing around the cavity of your cranius, humanist, brainless person. So nobody likes the sound of their voice. But just start making little simple reels to yourself or journal to yourself or whatever. You get over it a lot quicker. You have any more
Yeah,
tips, Mr.
and
Junkie?
yeah, I have some tips. Well, going back to the editing aspect, right? Because if we can continue on this, I will give someone or anyone who's listening this tip is be careful what you say to yourself because your mind is eavesdropping. That's all I can tell you in that aspect. And if you can figure that out, then you're much better off. But as far as the podcasting pro tips and tricks, I think that, the script is a big thing because I'm actually using it myself. And a tip that I'm doing is that I'm actually not using those audio programs because I'm a Final Cut Pro editor. And it being a video podcast, I'm actually editing the podcast through Final Cut Pro.
Yep.
The thing is, the way that I'm editing it is still in the podcast form. So, what does that mean? That means that I'm editing audio first, even though there's a video aspect to it, right? And there's that aspect on my timeline. I am still editing the audio as the audio listener first. And that's who I'm thinking about, making sure that if the audio is not there and well done, then we can't even start to build on the video because the podcast is not a podcast if it's not audio. So
Correct.
that's one of the things that I wanted to just emphasize because even though we're talking about starting a video podcast first, it is still a podcast. So we cannot forget about the audio listeners thinking that we're going to say things on the podcast like, take a look at this. Because taking a look at something requires the video aspect of it. So, just be mindful in those things and understand that even though whatever medium that you're using it, think of the audio first. And once you have that, then you have all the other things that you can build upon the video aspect to accompany it. And then you can supplement it with B-roll or then even cut little pieces out in different forms, whether it be vertical or square, so that you can repurpose that for your social medias to also get the branding of the podcast out in various different platforms.
100%. This is something very important I want to bring up. Again, what Luis just said, I want to remind you. Rich and I were at Podcast Movement all week, so he's probably heard me say this many a times to people. Even if you don't plan on starting a video podcast, record it as a video because, again, you can see what you're doing when you edit. It makes your editing process so much easier, as Luis just stated. The other thing, you take your audio when you're done, you post it to wherever your podcast getting is got, and now the number one question that came up at Podcast Movement is, how do I get more people to see my podcast? This question came over and over and over and over again. So it turns out, still, one of the best ways, as Travis Brown put us onto again, is to use Instagram. Use Instagram Reels or Shorts on YouTube or TikTok or LinkedIn even. So what happens with those, because you did it as a video first, you're able to take hitters. Like Luis just dropped a couple of bombs. I could take that bomb where Luis spoke about doing, saying things like, look over here when you know that audio listeners can't see. I could take that clip, turn it into a video, vertical, put different B-roll in front of it to make it make sense, and then publish that onto any of those short places I spoke about. What the short form video places will now do is give me an opportunity in the call to action to send them back to subscribe to the podcast. So I'm taking the element that was already done, and a lot easier because the video does exist, I can now generate a short form content from that. And that, my friends, is how you cook bacon in an oven. So I think it's very important that you do a video first, even if you have no intentions on having a video podcast. And lastly, I will state, start with video first. It does make the whole thing easier, but also you will probably want to go back and get those videos that you made and you edited and post them at some point, because now this week YouTube has officially announced that tab I've been telling y'all about. It's not fully baked yet, but it's the foot in the door. They stuck a size 13 Nike in the door and said, look, gang, we're about to kick this podcast thing down. You have been warned. Okay, so now is the time. If you have been sitting on it, now is the time to get gangster with your video podcast. 100%.
A little tip to add to that is that officially, as of the first day that YouTube put the podcasting feature on their website, that same day they officially became the number one podcasting source. I believe Apple is at 17%, Spotify is at 23%, and YouTube is currently at 25% of the place where people listen to podcasts.
Uh, don't want to get an explicit tag, but insert your favorite bad word right there and be like, because that's amazing. That is amazing. Oh my goodness, that's. But see, I said it ever since I started talking about this more than a year ago. I've been telling y'all, Jared and Tom and I have been back channeling this conversation for a minute. I'm telling you, it's about to get nuts. And yeah, it's just about to get nuts. So get started, man. It's just a thing to do. Now, I am going to say, because we're getting this tab the way we're getting it, one of the questions that will pop up, and I think this is a choice you have to make. No one's going to be able to give you the right answer. This is your answer and your answer only. So please don't ask, should I make another channel or put the podcast on my current channel? Your business. Period, point blank. There is no right answer. There is no wrong answer. It's how you want to do it. I will tell you right now, as of tomorrow, there will be lots of gurus out there telling you what to do. That is up to you. Period, point blank, in the story. So make it an executive decision. Know that you can change the decision later. Don't freak out. It's not the end of the world. There'll be no flooding. There'll be no stuffing two animals at a time on a boat. It's just a decision you made and you can change the decision. Okay? So pick one and run with it. That's all I'm going to say about that. I'm in soapboxing today. I'm going to stop.
Oh, but hey, we're getting a lot of good information there. And yeah, I would have to say the same thing. When it comes to this and when it comes to the podcasting on this platform, I would also recommend to start with video because if you decide to actually sprucing up the video in the future, you get used to it. You already know what you're doing and you know what you're missing. But then at the same time, if for example, like you know that you're not going to use the video, right? So for example, let's just say you're creating a podcast with a very good friend, and let's say neither of them want to put on makeup that day, right? It's a no makeup day or something of that sort, that like we're just in the morning and we still got grime in our eyes and nobody's worrying about their actual appearance. The fact that you're having a like face-to-face conversation with someone is what heightens the conversation or the podcast, in my opinion. So even if you decide to not even use any of the video, I still feel that you should start with that medium because it just makes the conversation that much more genuine.
True story. True story. Oh, man, it's a lot. I can't think of any other podcasting success tips that you won't get as you start doing the podcast. I can't think of any one right off the top of my head. I think some of them are going to be deeper, but I just wanted to make sure we covered the basics. The basics are get started. I think it's very important that you learn to edit whether you plan on being an editor or not. And I'm not asking you to be a Chet Pettibone level editor. If you don't know who that is, he was one of the greatest producers behind Madonna, Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, like all of the big people that you know. And then I think, yeah, the other one is I still say do video first, even if you plan not using the video. Even if you wanted to be like Louis said, with no makeup, shoot the video anyway and just promise them that you're going to delete it. When you go to make those clips to promote it, just cover it with B-roll. And yeah, I did want to reiterate what Louis said earlier. I hope Jared, a fellow filmmaker here, doesn't tell you, don't get mad at me for giving you the secret. But whenever we screw up a focus or we screw up an edit or something, we just cover it with B-roll and don't nobody know the difference, right? So yeah,
Absolutely.
don't nobody know the difference. And then I'm going to cover this one real quickly as a suggestion. There are tons of 1 minute podcasts, 2-minute podcast. It's Tuesday's 2 minutes financial tip, brought to you by dun, 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 Vega and Associates Wealth Partners. Bam! Did you know that if you had such and such IRA with this much put in, and you peel this from your check and your company matches this is one of the great way to get your retirement game in together. So make sure you're seeing your HR person and your lawyer or accountant if you have one, and set up the Luis Vega IRA. That has been the 2-minute Luis Vega Wealth Moment, sponsored by Wealth Management Partners of Luis and Aiden Vega. Period. 2-minute podcast. There could be it could be a 3-day podcast. It's up to you. That question, just do it. Pick what. If it takes you 2 minutes, take 2. If it takes you 10, take 10. If it takes you an hour, take an hour. It doesn't matter. I had a buddy of mine named Sam that did 60-second app reviews as a podcast, 1,000 episodes deep. So just get in there and do what you got to do. And you can do special episodes. You can do behind the scenes episodes. You can do Q&A episodes, as they call them in the big podcast, mailbag episodes, where you answer the mailbag. You can even do an episode where you do nothing but read your reviews and call it a day. If you're having stuck ideas on episodes, go see Travis's company Poddex and get the deck about episodes. There you go. That's another thing. Poddex are an amazing resource, but you can also Google it if you want something fancy. And Poddeck is an app. So all of the above. Any more tips, Mr. Luis?
Yeah, you reminded me of something that we spoke of before that I was going to mention, which was about editing yourself. We had mentioned it before, but one thing that you learn when you start editing for yourself is that you end up developing your own style. And that style is what you would be communicating to your future editor, or if you decide to just take it on all on yourself because that's something that you really like to do. But that's the thing that I wanted to mention, which is that when you start editing for yourself, you actually build your own style of the way that you like to see the cuts and the kind of B-roll, like you mentioned, that you would be adding into it, because that's where you actually add your personality. So that goes whether it's a podcast on the audio, video, recordings for YouTube, and anything that falls under that like editing umbrella. You will be developing your own style, and that's where you actually get to make your mark and put your own little like je ne sais quoi to it.
That is it. Je ne sais quoi. Okay, gang, we're going to wrap up this particular episode of The Flow. Number 1, if you have ideas or suggestions for success tips that we missed, drop them at flow@ecamm.com. I'm going to repeat this line for Luis to re-edit. If you have questions or success tips that we missed, please send them to flow@ecamm.com, and we'll bring them back up in the later episode to make sure we get all bases covered. If you haven't done so already, make sure you go over to flow.ecamm.com in order to see the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, and again, jump over to iTunes if you like this and leave us a review. It's very helpful to us and any other podcasters out there. Reviews on iTunes go a really long way. You can leave reviews in other spots, and they are appreciated, but the master place is Apple. It's just the way that, podcast leveling sort of works. It's just how it works. And if you haven't done so already, I want to show you the place where to get it. This is it again. You can pick it up on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, straight off the RSS feed, or wherever your podcast getting is got. And you can get that at flow.ecamm.com. Or, of course, you can just do a search on The Flow by Ecamm Live, and you will find us. Mr. Camera Junkie, today, I really appreciate you for standing there for Katie. You did a fantastic job, and you don't have a Canadian accent.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun hanging out and being able to share with such an amazing community. So thanks for the opportunity, and anytime, I'm happy to help.
Okay, now, gang, for those of you listening to this on the audio, you're going to miss out on this next part. We record this live every Tuesday over on the Ecamm Live channel on YouTube, and we're about to jump into live studio audience questions. We got lots of questions from the studio audience. So if you want to partake, you can join us live every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. For now, listening at home, thank you for listening to The Flow. I'm Doc Rock, and I must say, aloha. All right, Q&A squad, we're diving in. I see some people in here. I want to say some shouts out to real quick on, and then I'll get to stuff that I had starred. Travis Brown Poddex. Poddex is a company. I have the app on my phone. You can get the app on your phone. They're basically playing cards with like glorious information that you can use in order to spice up a podcast, like ice-breaking questions, episode topics, all myriad things like that. It is really cool.
Yep.
You can just go over to poddex.com and get them. I just mentioned Travis because he was speaking this week at, I was going to say People of Video. He was
Podcast
speaking this
movement.
week at Podcast Movement, and he did a fantastic talk on how he got from 0 to like, I think 20,000. Rich is going to correct me. He got from like 0 to 20,000 on IG in a matter of weeks just by keeping it gangster. So that's what that conversation was about, because it's how you can use Reels as a way to get people to see your podcast. It's one of those things that's probably super underutilized, and people don't get it. One thing I will say about Reels before we get into the Q&A, do like a couple of just you being you before you just make every reel a call to action. Those people are irritating. Don't be one of those. Sorry, marketing people, I'm coming for you. All right, let me go back in here and see. Yes, even 2 minutes. That's it. And the reason I did that because I think Feel So Good asked a question. I saw it out the corner of my eye, so I just covered it. Man, it don't matter if your episode is 1 minute, 2 minute, 10 minute, 50, 1100 minutes. Just get in there and get those sods out. It's all about the sods. All right, let me go back. Real question. And this is podcast only info. We're not really talking Ecamm Live, but since you came all the way from Brazil, bit rates are not important to anybody except Amazon. Nobody else cares. Our app automatically will adjust according to what you have the capability. So making it higher, if we don't do it automatically, that means your internet don't have that kind of base, because we are Megan Trainer and we are all about that base. If you have the internet that's capable, we will spit out the best thing your connection will do. And believe it or not, we're much better at it than the average human. It's just like no human being can outshift a manual automatic transmission these days. Back in the day, you wanted a manual because you can shift, nicely. Man, all of the car computers, even on like a Corolla, a human cannot outshift a computer. So just get it automatic and be happy. All right, anyway, so let's get back to some of these questions. I started a bunch of them. Roy said he was joking, but it was a good question. And Roy was talking about, are we supposed to edit our video podcast or just post it as it is? Here's what we do, Roy. I think it's a fantastic question. And again, this is one of those you things. If you're embarrassed by your mistakes, stop. But if you're embarrassed by your mistakes, then yeah, take down the recording and just put the polished. I like to leave both, and I believe we leave both. That's what I told Katie to do, because people are going to bump into it left, right, or indifferent. What you can do is in the description of your messed up one, you can be like, the polished edit is here, and that's the first line of your description. So for the people that want to listen on 2X, I think it's cool to let people to see the back end. Everybody used to go to the DVD extras and see all this stuff. Marvel puts all of their screw ups at the end of the movies, and there's a surprise. It's just something about letting people see where you do. So yeah, I think your question is valid, and it's a good question. I tend to leave both. I would say it's perfectly fine to leave both. If you think I don't want nobody to see me making mistakes, you're a bad person, because that means you're lying to them in my brain, but that's up to you. I know people have different feelings about that. I don't want to see my doctor if he makes mistakes. I don't want the cocky doctor that thinks they're perfect. I want the doctor that will lean over and ask the nurse, what do you feel about this? Because cocky people make more mistakes. You end up with scissors sewed back up in you. So there's that. If you read stories about medical horrors, it's always the cocky doctor who didn't listen to the tech trying to tell them that you're about to sew the scissors up in the abdomen. So there's that. Where he also said, there are Facebook groups that will let you post and test your video test streams without judgment so you can practice. Fantastic. I love that idea. Gangster. Let me see. Grant says, if you're editing in GarageBand but you're doing a video podcast, can you do this as a film score? Question, little blurry, but I'm gonna use my autofocus on this one. GarageBand will let you see a video, but when you make edits to the audio, it does not edit the video. It just gives you a visual representation of where you are. GarageBand's whole purpose of having a video window is so that you can edit a film score. That's what it exists for. So you kind of answered your own question, but if you're trying to edit a video podcast using GarageBand, I would say no. You'd be better do that in iMovie if you're trying to go free. But the real deal Holyfield is Final Cut or Premiere or something that's made for video. Because then that's
or
just
DaVinci, you know.
Da Vinci. When people say Da Vinci, I feel like I'm a vampire. I don't know why. Rich says, editing in Premiere Final Cut is way easier. It's a visual thing. 100%. I agree with you 100% there, Big Poppy. Ladies and gentlemen, Rich is a real human being and one of the nicest cats in the planet. I had the most fun cruising with him all last week. Just super good. Super good. And let me get rid of that. We covered that. Jared had a good comment. Says he started in GarageBand and Logic now, but Garage. Garage, get it? Jared, Garage. Hello. GarageBand is great. I did want to say, while we got 35 people watching and 27 likes, it's just rude. Todd said, when I started editing, I was able to find another podcaster learning the same editing software as me. We compared notes once a week and were able to teach each other and move quicker through the process. That, my friends, is brilliant. That's what you can do in the Ecamm Discord or in the LGL Discord. Yeah, pick something, learn it together, hang out, and figure it out collectively. That is dope.
Yeah. Another thing that
Go ahead.
I do actually with my clients is that as a freelance editor, I'm not only editing people's video, but there are a subset of people where I'm actually teaching them how to edit. So we are going through the edits so that they can learn their own style that I had mentioned before and pick up their preferred, editing program and give them the tools and the structure on how to edit anything, whether it's a podcast or a video.
100%. 100%. Todd said, Hindenburg journalist is amazing. Yes, they had a booth right next to us, and I was looking at it. Hindenburg does look pretty cool. Todd also says, my persistence convinced him to switch to audio-only podcast to a live video podcast. Recording live is the best way to grow your community. For Twit, we've been doing it live every Tuesdays for years, and then the other version comes out later. As a matter of fact, I got invited to do Twit today, so I might be doing Twit. They might have already got somebody, I'm not sure. They did get someone in the end, so they put me up for next time. It was last minute, and I'm on the East Coast now. Normally I'm behind them, but I was going to be on Twit today doing Mac Break Weekly, so yeah. Eden says, first of all, hey Eden, what's up, Mom? She said, Audacity throwback interface hasn't been updated since 1995. Thank you for having my back, E-Boogie. This is why I love you. This is 100% why I love you. She says, Descript is the ultimate audio editing hack. It is 100%. It is so much that. I like this comment that came from Jared. I learned something every episode. 90 plus episodes in and still learning. Can you just grok that for a hot second? Right?
Yeah,
Can you
say
grok
for the
that
people
for a
in
hot
the back.
second? Yes. And Eden also said, can't learn from your experiences without any experience. This is true. And it's funny, right? Because a lot of jobs will be like, oh, we're looking for someone and we'll pay you based on your experience. And I always thought it was funny because there's no place to get the experience if you never get the job, right? There's no jumping off point, if you will. And many careers are like that. And I find that funny. You see it every Sunday in the paper. Um, Man, Lee came through and said, caught y'all late, but happy I did. Uh, Happy we did this video chat. Yes, I think, again, going back to what Todd said earlier, one of the advantages of recording live is getting that direct feedback from your peeps in real time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a genuine conversation, and when you say something or do something to make the other person laugh or something like that, you could actually see that response and know that, you know, like that you're flowing. Funny, right? The flow, but that the conversation's flowing, so that, that's why I really think that video is the way to go, because for anyone who's thinking like, oh, I'm scared of the camera, I'm like, you're not scared of a FaceTime call. And a lot of us have these smartphones and everyone calls us in the worst places, right? And getting a FaceTime call when you're in the restroom. So, like, the crazy thing is that we all overthink these things when you're actually on camera, it's a much more controlled environment, right? Like the camera has something that we call the cone of cleanliness, right? Which is anything that the camera sees is clean. But let's not look at my desk here, right? Because it's a hot mess because I've been trying to pack and get things going, and I'm like cleaning house for the road trip that I'm about to take. So that's one of those aspects that I say I think we overthink it a whole lot because we have no problems putting our face and having a front like FaceTime call with friends, family, and there's really no difference using these mediums in that manner.
See, I went to go do an NDI thing and busted what I was going to show you. So let me stop doing that. Thank God the
Because you're
recording.
adding stuff to the USB now.
Yeah, let me not do that. Hello. Cal Digit, you being a little iffy right now. Anyway, so Phil So Alive Marketing Group says, what about Camtasia for editing? Camtasia is dope if you like that kind of thing. Not the hugest fan of Camtasia, but it works. It works. Your editing choice is going to be up to you. And of course, it did it to me right now. Okay, it's back. Your editing choice is up to you. You got to use what will help you get the process done. This is one of those things, and I love this question because I get on my students' case about learning how to extrapolate when extrapolation is necessary and learn specificity when specificity is necessary. So, for instance, I could be talking about the importance of white balancing the camera. And then so I'll bring out my X-Rite color card and I'll go like this and I'll show them how to go like that and tell them that in the Sony interface, you go to this page, you hit the white balance, it captures a picture of the card, it adjusts your color beautifully. And then some person, I was about to say in bad word, will come in and go, I don't have a Sony camera, I have a Panasonic. So what? Every camera has white balance. Your manual will have to tell you how to do it differently because Panasonic is different. But every camera has white balance. This Insta360 $299 has white balance. Okay? Like here, I'll show you just because I don't want to
Oh,
be talk about it, don't be about it. Even something as simple as the Insta360 Link controller has white balance over here. Look, auto white balance off, and then adjust this temperature. Like, see, it gets all goofball, right? And then white balance on. You don't have to come in and go, I can't wipe. I don't. How do you white balance? I have a different camera. Sorry, you gotta wait for it to catch up now. Um, just do it. Like it's not a thing. Just do it. It's you don't have to go in and ask that extra question. Just realize that you're doing something different. So you're gonna have to extrapolate the knowledge to you. It's not dissimilar from making a recipe, and I've seen this. Sometimes it's a question, sometimes it's I don't know what it is. Uh, hey man, y'all just put cheese in there. I don't like take the cheese out. That's it. If you don't like cheese, it's eliminated. You don't have to. You don't have to tell somebody that you don't like cheese because the other 98% of the population we eat the cheese. So just let that slide. So good question, but know that you got to edit with what you want to edit with. All right, sorry. I'm a soapboxy today. Y'all are in trouble. Bacon is the
I
bomb.
had something to say.
Go ahead.
But
Throw it in
you threw me off with the cheese. So
there. What was you gonna say?
I was gonna say, like, I feel personally attacked because I try to eat as little cheese as possible.
Oh, I'm glad only like 8 people in the chat
I'm not averse to it. I just try to eat as little as possible.
No, that's
it's
a different story
delicious,
too,
but
right? That's
you
a
know,
different story too because
yeah,
it is a choice thing, right? It's like
absolutely,
okay, so Rich took me to this incredible restaurant called the Rodeo Goat, and
yeah. You
there,
haven't stopped talking about it.
oh, it's good. There's also this other cool space. The dude was like 104. He's walking around still, and it's like Dunston's Steakhouse. When you go to the front, there's like the horns. There's a cow on the wall with lights all around it. Dunston's Steakhouse been open since 1815 or something, and somebody would come in and be like, "I don't like that place because they don't have no vegan options." No, it's called the Steakhouse, homie. What were you waiting? Across the street is Sprouts. Like, don't
Yeah,
come and be like that because it's not the exact way you want. That's not how the world works. You made an
yes,
executive decision to be vegan, and I don't sweat your decision. I sweat when y'all
exactly.
come mad at everybody else that we don't support that decision. That's none of
Yeah,
our
but
business. You chose to do that. So you have to think more. There's apps that will tell you don't go to Dunston's. Turns out a 100-year-old steakhouse don't have vegan options. They do got a salad bar though, which is off the freaking chain. Oh my God. But I'm just using it as an example. Like, don't go to the steak
yeah,
restaurant and mad they don't serve chicken. That's just simple. That's just super
yeah.
simple.
I have to agree, and like I said, that's just a simple choice, right? And that's what people need to understand. So, going back to it full circle, whether it's your editor, whether it's the amount of time that you want your podcast, how you decide to do it, and what you're going to talk about it, these are all things that are basically your choice. So there's really no right way or wrong way of doing it, which is why we also emphasize and just to get started because the way that even my live streams and things started is not the way that they're going now, and even the conversations what were being talked about, but I would have never gotten to where I'm at now if I didn't start where I started. So just know that it's always a work in progress, and we always talk about getting that 1% better, right? So
Can
while
y'all
you're
hear
doing
that?
that, while you're
My
learning,
impression of Diana Gladney right now?
I no, I couldn't hear it because I was speaking.
Sorry, it's the F-35 jets. Or the F-35 jets are going crazy over here. But
We need the boom boom for you
yeah,
now.
super funny. I am right across from Langley Air Force Base, so you might hear a jet or two. I did
Well,
want to
that's
cover.
karma.
Yeah, that's what I get for teasing Diana all the time, right? And over here, it's
Absolutely.
right next to the base, so like they fly mad low. I want to show something to our guests from Brazil today because I see what you're saying. YouTube does give that warning, but YouTube is full of crap. So you can ignore that warning. And of course, today I am at my sister's house, so I don't get that warning. But normally, what happens is, oh man, it's not going to work. I'm not getting the warning today. In the back end of YouTube Studio, you often get a warning that says that you're not getting the right bit rate. That's just YouTube wanting you to save their servers. When I'm at home, my thing is always complaining about that I'm sending 4K with not enough bit rate to send 4K, but yet I send 4K to it flawlessly and never have a problem. Today, I'm at my sister's house where I got 500 up and I don't get that that warning. So again, truth be told though, if you're getting that warning on YouTube, that's YouTube telling you that your internet is not as big as your heart, and it, it's trying to tell you don't do that. All you got to do is go down from 4K to 1080 or 1080 to 720, and then that'll go away, or just trust that it works anyway. So ignore that warning. But again, we don't do configurations because it's an absolute waste of time, and people spend more time tweaking that as opposed to actually streaming and getting their life together. Thank you, Robin, for that great 2-minute podcast example. So, yeah, there's a lot of them out there. No, I was on This Week in Tech, which is TWIT, TWIT. I'm also on Mac Break Weekly, which is also by the TWIT, the company, but that was Mac Break Weekly. Bam. Extrapolating generalizes something people really miss with Discord. It's just a website. Left click, right click. Just click and watch the magic. Man, you ain't saying nothing but a word, Big Bird. Keely is right. So many times people are like, where's the button to do so and so? Did you try right clicking on it? Oh, look, it's right there. Yeah. Turns out if you're a Mac user, right clicking on it actually works. Like half the time the answer is just under the right click. Or option click. Did you try option dragging? No. Option drag worked in the other 600 apps on your computer. Why would it not work in this one? I don't know. I never tried it. Well, try it. Oh my God, it works. No S, Sherlock. Yes.
My favorite thing is that I think people underestimate Google, because we all have this Google machine in our pockets, and anywhere we go, we have the ability to just say, "Hey Siri." Oh, sorry for everyone's phone who just went off, but we have the ability, to just speak to our phones at voice command and ask it any question, no matter how stupid it is. So that's where I think that like this upcoming generation really doesn't have any excuses, right? Because
They don't.
everything is at their fingertips. So it's just
Everything.
what you make of it.
Man, it's funny. Even half the questions that we get asked in any kind of stream or back channel, whatever, you could probably ask Siri and get the exact same answer with a little bit less of my snarkiness.
Even
Robin,
if she doesn't, a
Siri don't
little
talk
bit
back
less
yet.
or a lot.
Shut up, Louise. Robin, how to pre-schedule moderator on YouTube with Ecamm Live? I don't understand the question because that's not a feature that we have. How do I pre-schedule a Duncan stream? Hey, Paul, I'm streaming at 12. Okay, see you there. That's it. There's no more steps.
But let's be clear, because that has to do with Paul being such an amazing
Paul is
moderator.
Paul. Yeah, Paul's unstoppable.
Like Paul is Mr. Moderator for a reason, and that's why. So if you're inquiring about his services, I would definitely tell you to get in
I did say,
contact
I said
with
hit
him.
up his channel. But
Yep.
one of the things that you should do, even if you find your moderator, okay, Robin brings up a good point, so let me stop clowning. If you're streaming, when you get 3 people that come to your stream 2 weeks in a row, pick one of them as a moderator. If 2 people comes to your stream 2 weeks in a row, pick one of them as a moderator. If one person comes to your stream every week, pick them as a moderator. And then send them to the Dunkinator to get trained up on how to be the moderator, right? It is the most important thing you will ever do in doing a live show is have a moderator, because they will hold you down and help you get your stuff together. Now, Paul is probably out my butt. Paul is the epitome of a amazing moderator. Luis is a fantastic moderator. Miss Keeley's in the chat is a good moderator. Rich is a good moderator, except Rich likes to talk to the bots. I don't know why.
He talks to the fembots.
He talks to the bots every time. It's super funny. But yes, Robin, it's important because they will not only help you, they will leave you to pay attention to what you're doing. And then you don't have to worry so much about what's going on in the chat. So find one of your super fans, make them a moderator. If you don't have any of them yet, that's what you got kids for. Hey, you know how to use YouTube. Sit over there and watch me do this and throw out any of the bad people. It's super simple. Like they got to pay their rent some kind of way. But you should definitely go in your community, do a little thing like in your email list. Hit your email list and be like, hey, Gay, I need a moderator for these here streams. Anybody want so and so? And then, good to go. Will they all be as good as Paul? Probably not. Paul is like Tiger Woods of moderating. Let's just hope nobody hits him in the head with a 9-iron. That's it. That's it.
That's when you say we just hope he behaves.
Yeah. Okay, Tati has a good question. Obviously, no, Tati. Listen to me right now. Hey, I was holding my neck like this, and then my Insta 360 thought I was giving the follow me gesture. That's super funny. Tati says, do you guys do any vocal warm-ups to prepare your voices before going live? Yep. Drink whiskey. How do you take care of your voice? Obviously, you don't. You do a conference for like 6 days in a row, yelling and screaming at bars, staying out late at night, drinking pickle martinis and dirty martinis, eating fried pickles, and your voice sounds like this. I'm going to say, and I might be wrong, I will have to double check this, but I'm going to say most of the things that people do in the idea of quote unquote taking care of their voice is mostly urban legendary.
Yeah.
Hot tea, honey.
Well, no, hot tea, things like that, they're going to help just because of the temperature of the fluid.
For like a split second. As soon as you start talking, your temperature immobilizes. And again, this is why they all work, because they're, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, God.
Placebos.
Not placebos, but psychosomatic. I can say. Yeah, a lot of them are psychosomatic. I think I am going to go double check on this, because all of the people that believe what their grandma taught me, they're going to want to fight me. But I swear I recently saw a video done by Business Insider that stated that most of the drink some water, drink some honey, do a shot of whiskey, do the vocal warm-ups, that most of them are psychosomatic. Because you can warm your voice, but I
would say whiskey is different. Whiskey is different because the alcohol is just going to make you act different before your performance.
That's different. That's different. That's liquid courage. But there are vocal trainings, and that requires going to a vocal coach, which would tell you to use your diaphragm more, how to use levels and inflection and style. Like those are the things that really go farther. But the concept of like vocal warm-ups, I think are primarily psychosomatic. Range testing, like that I believe, right? Scales, yeah. But most of it, I think, is urban legend. I'm going to go double check now because it was brought up. But, yeah. And again,
I think if you have children, just speaking to them or, getting them to do something in a
yelling
loud
at your kids
manner.
To shut up before you start is vocal warm-up?
Yeah, exactly. So us Puerto Ricans, we don't have too much problem with that. We're like, hey. That's part of our morning routine.
Yeah, yes. Oh, ¿qué pasó from Chile? Yes, I love En Audiencia. I love that name. That's good. There is a need for some basic vocal scathing. Is there a need for some basic vocal saving? What vocals are we saving? I want to know how many of you guys podcast enough to damage your voice. I am live streaming 6 out of 7 days a week. I don't do jack for my voice. Today is different. It's a combination of being in a different state with different things around me, jacking up the sinuses and whatnot, and speaking on the show floor for 7 days in a row. And yelling, cracking jokes with Rich. But even then, I just want to know what voice are you guys saving? Who's Whitney Houston out in these streets? You guys are making up stuff that seems. I'm just going to be Doc here. It seems a little bit excusey.
Well, one thing, and speaking truthfully, is that
You like my
Aiden
Kermit
does
the
not
Frog look?
speak. No, yeah, the Kermit the Frog. But Aiden doesn't speak. So I do notice certain times that I can spend the entire morning without saying anything. And the first time that I go to speak, it's like completely dry and it's been hard to get those first words out. But whether it's hot water or cold water, as soon as your body regulates it, then, that aspect is going to
It
be
goes.
regulated.
It goes right back out the window. Your
Yeah, but the
body
only thing that
is.
I would say is try to avoid cold drinks because room temperature or hot would just be better for the
Oh,
expansion
it's
of the,
quicker to
throat.
acclimate. Yeah, your body
Yeah,
is a
that's
body
it.
temperature. So, like, going to the drastic opposites or whatever. I don't know. Like I
It's
said
to
at
the
the beginning of
extremes.
this conversation, I could be wrong, but to me, as a coach, and maybe I see things differently. I see things differently as a coach. As a coach, I see those thoughts as excuses not to do what you got to do. I also see I don't like the way my voice sounds, so it's a concern. Nobody cares. Like at the end of the day, nobody cares. Fran Dresser has a what's the word I'm thinking of? Slide down a sliding board full of razor blades into a pool of alcohol voice. And she made it famous. You know what I'm saying? Gilbert Godfrey has a very similar voice and made it famous. Jafar, if I see you give me another one of those stinking crackers, pow, right in the kisser. Right? Like, there's people that are born with completely jacked up voices that turned it into millions of dollars. So stop stressing about your voice. It's not it. Nobody cares. Right?
Yeah, it's actually
Nobody
iconic.
legit cares. If the content is good, if your podcast is Mr. Moderator shows you how to make $10 million in the next 15 seconds, Paul could come out here sounding like, wait and you see my, listen up, I'm going to show you how to make $15 million in 10 seconds. And nobody will give a damn. The first person that actually did it and came back and left the testimonial and be like, damn, Paul was right. I made $15 million in 15 seconds. Nobody going to care about the voice. They just don't. I mean, those are some of the things. Now, one more thing I will say, as a professional MC and DJ, been on radio for many, many years, in the beginning, your voice might do some weird stuff because it's not used to the work. If you push it enough, it will build that tolerance anyway.
Yeah,
So,
that's a muscle.
how do you get your voice better for speaking? Speak. Done. Soapbox over.
Yep.
Just saying. And why Marshall got to come in here starting stuff? Sup, Foxy? Sup, Foxy? Again, Paul is right. Definitely, I did know this from my MC game. I can't do anything dairy before I talk. Get you the galas. Galas is a Hawaii word for like phlegm.
Congestion.
Is the thing.
Oh, yeah.
Congestion, yeah. Nobody likes the sound of their voice. Yeah, I said that earlier. Your head is a built-in resonant cavity. Inside your head, your voice sounds like you talking into your hands like such. But the rest of the world doesn't hear it like that. So, yeah, get over
The
it.
other
Just get
thing,
over it. Nobody
yeah,
cares.
the other thing is that because we hear our own voices in our head, it sounds octaves deeper. So we hear our own voices even lower in our own heads, so that when we hear it
That's what
on a
cranial
recording and
resonance.
it
That's what I
doesn't have
said.
that extra bass.
And no treble. That's what I said. That's exactly what cranial resonance is. You hear your own voice bouncing around in your cavity. Some of us have more cavity than others. Hey, y'all folks, listen to Gangsta Grandma. Listen to her. Saving voice. I have read 2 stories every night for 285 nights. And before that, as a teacher librarian, every day, 5 times a day for 35 years. My voice is still holding up. Stop stressing is right. Gangster.
That's a mic drop.
Oh, Tati, you will be really mad at me in my class. I do not allow my people to have any emotions when it comes to things that aren't real. Um, Here's why. It turns out a lot of the things that people have been told by family members, friends, or whatever that they're supposed to react to a certain way emotionally are completely incongruent to being a normal human being. I am not a person that is about unnecessary freakouts about emotions because feelings ain't facts. They just ain't. Like, I feel like I can fly, R. Kelly. Fact is, gravity 8.7 ain't gonna let you do that. I'm saying, I believe I can. No, you can't. Just, you can believe what you wanna, but gravity says different, right? Yeah, it's just one of those things. So I try to, everybody that's in my class, everybody that's in Let's Get Live, they know I kick in the pills anything that has to do with emotions that are holding you back, because most of these emotions were taught to you by somebody else, either thinking that they're protecting you or trying to hold you back. And in most cases, it's just crazy. It's super crazy. A fantastic book. It's called Culture of Fear, and it's written by a dude named Daniel Glasser. Let me double check, make sure I'm saying what I'm saying. And he brings up a great example in this book. Hold on. Yes, it's by Barry Glassner. Sorry, not Daniel. He brings up a great thing in his book. You can pick it up used for like $4. He talked about the Halloween candy thing. There's a bunch of people in the chat, parents out there. How many of you guys are scared to let your kids go trick-or-treating because of this fear that somebody might be out here trying to poison your kids? As you type that in the chat, I'll tell you the answer. Daniel did a search back from like 1920 something when they first started keeping blotters police record where they write everything down. It happens all night long. Up until 2009 when he published his book, there have been actively in the United States over dang near 90 years, there have been actively 4 cases, 4 cases of poison candy on Halloween. 4. And it was because some church back in the day thought Halloween was satanic. So they thought if they could convince everybody that your kids are going to get murdered or killed on Halloween, people would stop Halloween and go to church. That spread throughout our country for years and years and years. Even my mama, you can't eat the candy until your parents inspect it because you're going to get poisonous candy. Or the other one, you're going to get razor blades in the apple. That was a famous one as a kid. Have you ever tried to stick a razor blade in the apple? It ain't easy. It ain't as easy as you thought. Back in the day, razor blades didn't have one side covered. They were double-sided safety razors, had a little hole in the middle. It's for dropping in and going like this. If you try to take one of those and push it into an apple, A, not that easy. B, you're going to cut your own self. So nobody finna do that over. And then if you pick up an apple and you see a gigantic 3-inch line in it, do you bite it? No. You tend to look at the ones in the store that got nicks in it. You don't even want them. So, like, the whole story was just crack. And that's what I mean by people telling people stuff that got people believing stuff that's not really real. And so that sprouted around our country for years. And normally for someone to do something that level of heinous, they have to know you and be like actively against you. Strangers just don't do stuff like that to other strangers, mostly because we lazy. You know what I'm saying? The other one, oh, oh, I got it. Todd says that's his excuse for stealing his kid's candy. The other one that is really funny in that whole sentence is in Hawaii, for instance, and it might be like this where you live. The combat to this over like excited moms is they send people to the mall to do trick-or-treating in the mall. Now, let's put the emotions in this bottom corner over here for a second. And let's put the facts right here in my big head. If I'm some jerk in your neighborhood and I want to poison the little bitty children's, if I put the poisonous candy at my house, I might see 50 kids. If I'm at the mall, dressed in a costume that you can't see my face, hiding inside your local store, handing out the candy at the front door at the store, how many kids will I have access to at the mall in the Halloween versus at my house? You absolute freaking idiots. Like, think about it. I can go through 20,000 kids at the mall. You can't do that at your house. So taking them to the mall to hand out candy at the mall is dumber than a box of rocks. But that's what they do where I live, over the guise of your kids might get some poisonous candy. And nobody sees the fallacy in this. I brought it up tons of times. I've even told it to the news, and they still do it. Like, it's just dumb. It's borderline stupid. So don't be careful of your fears. Check them again. No matter what it is you're scared of, go realign that. Go check it again. Check the facts about what you're afraid of. And one of the first things you should do, everyone here, I suggest you go look for Veritas or a couple other places, big thing, and just look up how humans feel about their own voice, and you're done. That part will be over with, because you'll realize it's not a thing.
Well, just one quote to add to that is fear is not real. Danger is real.
Yep.
So know the difference of that. Fear is there's really nothing there, right? But danger
There's
is a
no there
completely
there.
different thing. Exactly. And if you're in danger, you can act one of two ways. You could either act in fear or in contrary of it, right? So understand that the fear is the action of maybe a dangerous situation, but the whole thing is that nobody should be fearing anything that we're doing here, because there is no danger in podcasting, video recording, or anything
Nope.
like that. We're doing this whole thing almost like
The
two
most
hours
the
with a
most
smile
dangerous
on my
thing is
face.
a sore butt from sitting in my sister's uncomfortable but nice looking chairs. I would have refought these chairs. Don't tell her. She gonna come
That's
home and
that's
be like,
recorded. That's recorded, bro.
these fools is shading my chairs. Okay, listen, we gotta jump because we have another stream. I gotta do my actual Doc Rock stream. So if you want to hear
That
more
too.
angry rants, come over there. And speaking of Mr. Moderator, hey Mr. Paul, can you set it up? I gotta go wee. Thank you, Mr. Paul. I love you. It's super funny. Luis was talking about how fast Paul can just. I think he has like a button. He just goes, Doc forgot to schedule the stream. Click, and it just happens. Guys, this is dope. I appreciate all you guys that came through. I appreciate the 27 of y'all that decided to stick around. And yes, Tati, because you're a teacher, you'll probably enjoy that book. It's really, really good. I got a huge kick out of it. There's some fantastic stuff in there. There's been a couple videos on it that you can find on YouTube if you want to see more about it. But yes, it's super good. Can't wait to see you guys again. If you're ready for some more, then jump on over to my channel. I'll be starting in roughly 15 minutes, just long enough to do the bathroom break and come back and find a cushion for this chair. Mahalo. Thank you, Mr. Junkie Camera. I appreciate you.
Hey, it was a lot of fun.
Don't forget, jump the flow.